Good evening. I would like to call the December 4th, 2012 Longmont City Council meeting to order. This is a regular session. Could we please start with a roll call, Valerie?
Yes, Mayor Coombs.
Present.
Councilmembers Bagley.
Here.
Finley. Here. Levison. Here. Samori. Here. Santos. Here. Witt. Here. Mayor Coombs, we have a quorum.
Great. We do have Troop 128 here to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. So if you'd like to come on down. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This troop is from the Faith Community Lutheran Church. Anyone wishing to speak at first call public invited to be heard will need to add his or her name to the list outside the council chambers. Only those on the list will be invited to speak at the first public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their names on the list will have the opportunity to speak during public hearing items this evening or at the final call public invited to be heard on any item at the end of the meeting. We now have the minutes to approve from the November 13th. Are there any corrections or additions to be made? Could I have a motion?
I would move the minutes from November 13th.
Second.
All right, let's vote. Okay, that passes 7-0. Now we have to approve the November 20th motions. Are there any corrections or additions? Councilmember Santos?
Thank you, Mayor. I would move the November 20th, 2012 regular session minutes.
All right, let's vote. Okay, that passes 7-0. Valerie, are there any additional agenda revisions or submissions of documents?
Yes, Mayor, we are adding a proclamation as item 6A tonight, and I believe you have that information in front of you.
Okay.
And that's it.
All right. So the proclamation is proclamation designating December 4th, 2012 as the third annual Colorado Gives Day in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas Community First Foundation and First Bank have joined forces in the effort to increase philanthropy and charity giving by creating Colorado Gives Day, and whereas in 2011, Colorado Gives Day raised $12.8 million in a single 24-hour period via online donations at givingfirst.org, and whereas givingfirst.org allows donors to direct their contributions to one or more of 1,000 area nonprofit organizations and receive a record of their contributions for tax purposes, and whereas Colorado Gives Day is December 4th, and Longmont residents are encouraged to participate in this initiative and give where you live. Now, therefore, I, Dennis L. Coombs, Mayor, by the virtue of the authority vested in me and the City Council of the City of Longmont, do hereby proclaim December 4th, 2012 as the third annual Colorado Gives Day in Longmont. I encourage all citizens in the community to make a donation today.
Mayor, I believe Cindy Lindsay was supposed to be here to accept this proclamation. Don't see her.
City Manager, is there a report today?
Mayor, there's no report today.
Okay. I guess before we start, first call public invited to be heard, I want to make a statement on behalf of myself and the council. And that statement is that we are all bound by the charter, and we all will stand unified to defend that charter. So I just want to make a public statement that we are going to defend the new charter amendment that was recently passed vigorously. So, the first person on the list is Teresa Foster. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mayor Coombs and Council. Good to see you again. Thank you very much for the declaration. I was just going to ask if you could make a public declaration to support Article 16, and so I'm very, very grateful. I did want to say that, our city has made national news. On November 25th, the New York Times published a story on how the people of Longmont voted to amend the city charter to ban fracking. Following the online article, there are 256 comments, and a majority of them speak in our favor. It's incredible the amount of support we have been shown from ordinary people from all across the country. I want to read two of the comments that I feel are particularly important. This is from Patricia Leigh Dorsey from Detroit, Michigan. I seldom see it mentioned, but the glut of natural gas from fracking is all for export. It is not intended to move us toward energy independence. I live near the mouth of the Columbia River, where a liquid natural gas import facility was proposed over 4 years ago with the promise of jobs and lower natural gas prices to a small, naive community. Local environmental activists very quickly suspected that the facility was import only as a disguise in order to gain local approval. They have been proven correct. The multinational conglomerate behind the facility has quietly changed its Federal Energy Regulatory Commission filing to an export facility. They will be exporting our domestic gas from the dirty practice of fracking to Asian markets to make a tidy profit. There is no interest at all in our nation's energy independence. It's all about world markets and profit. Wake up. Even intelligent news media like the New York Times are not covering the story that the natural gas from fracking is headed for export. And here's from Merriworth from Penn Yan, New York. Bravo to the people of Longmont. Fracking is not a conservative or a liberal issue. It is all about the health of your people and livestock and the purity of your water and land. The people of Longmont have got it right, a no to fracking and a yes to life. So once again, I thank you for making this public declaration that you'll defend Article 16 of our city charter. Thank you.
Thank you. Padma Wick, followed by James Kinworthy.
Good evening, Mayor Coombs and City Council members. My name is Padma Wick, 4213 Frederick Circle in Longmont. And I, too, want to thank you for taking the pledge to vigorously defend the Article 16. And I also have some comments from that New York Times article. From Pennsylvania, I urge the good people of Colorado to look very closely at what has happened in Pennsylvania. I recently met a town attorney from northern Pennsylvania who said he was initially very excited to have the income, jobs, and commerce from fracking come to his town. What did come in was this: traffic jams, roads ruined, creeks and streams drying up, crime rate through the roof, from all of the out-of-town workers coming in and whipping it up. Air pollution started severely bothering residents, causing skin rashes, asthma, brain and nervous disorders. And this was all before anyone talked about what the chemicals were doing to the water. All that money the attorney was eager to see never came. Fight the good fight, Colorado. From Ron S., East Berlin, Connecticut. Longmont was the city my wife and I had chosen to relocate to if we decided to move to Colorado. We're still here in Connecticut, but it's encouraging to see the people there have their priorities straight: clean air and water and a healthy environment. And as a prospective future resident, I would definitely pay more for a frack-free piece of property in a frack-free town. Keep up the good fight. Salt Lake City. I certainly wouldn't buy a house near a fracking well. Another one from Pennsylvania. Fracking in Pennsylvania has already polluted wells and threatened the beauty of our western and northern counties. Our governor stands with oil and gas companies. Bravo to the citizens of Longmont, Colorado. I wish I could help you in any upcoming battles. From New Mexico. 6 years ago, I almost bought property in the area around Bayfield, Colorado. While touring the area with my real estate broker, I noticed all these guys in BP and Halliburton trucks willy-nilly punching wells all over the place. And it occurred to me that at some point, a water well might become contaminated or cease functioning because the gas well punctured the aquifer and drained the potable water. I also found out that Colorado has one of the least beneficial payment structures to property owners from the extraction industry. In the interest of time, so I'm going to skip something. So much for the dream house with $1 million view. I abandoned my search in that state, and I will look elsewhere. At some point, people need to realize how much more precious water is compared to gas and oil, and move to protect it.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Padma. James Kenworthy, followed by Judith Blackburn.
James Kenworthy, 107 Caribou Place. And there's also an article in the French national newspaper Le Monde about Longmont, Colorado. I can't read it. So this comment is from a person in Longmont. As a resident of Longmont and a former associate with the oil industry, I can tell you without a shred of a doubt, and from a purely business point of view, that the industry does what all corporations do. They lie to achieve their goals. No corporation is a charity, and that's fine. But corporations will do anything and everything to downstream their liabilities. That's a fact, and no amount of lobbying can change this basic historic fact. The oil industry would rather spend millions each year paying lobbying groups to sway public opinion instead of spending millions to lighten their processes and make those processes more environmentally friendly. And when they're finished fracking and the damage is done, where will the gas and oil industry be? They will be gone from the community while we are left with a toxic mess. Tom, that's the author, says no more. Not now, not in the future. Aren't we paying enough into Superfund sites, the cleanups, and the ongoing battle to force companies to do the right thing? You and I, Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer, cough up the money for that work. It's our taxpayer money. We pay while the corporations quietly slither away with all their profits. Enough already. Those are Tom's words. Ya basta. Those are my words. Stand fast, my fellow citizens of Longmont. We draw the line here, no farther. That's the end of the comment. And I would like to thank the citizens of Longmont for knowing that big money is not their friend. We have been flooded with big money for at least the last 3 elections. Comcast won the first election, that's 3 elections ago, and the citizens won the last 2 elections. That's the really good news. And a body in motion tends to stay in motion, and the citizens of this city are in motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Judith Blackburn, followed by Bree Irwin.
Good evening. Judith Blackburn, 3724 Oakwood Drive. Mayor Coombs and council members, little did I realize last year about this time when I began having something to say to you all that I'd still be here a year later. Back then it was about the threat that I'd read about in the Times Call that there might be oil wells drilled at Union Reservoir, there, of all places. I just couldn't believe that the city was going to let this happen. As I remember it, you were discussing building a temporary nature trail around the lake at that same meeting. The neighbors out there were none too happy, mostly because the proposed trail was going to come too close to their back doors. And I remember in particular Chris Portuchek. I remember how difficult his name was for Mayor Coombs to pronounce. His emotional plea, he's improved a lot on that because Chris has spoken many times. But anyway, Chris made an emotional plea that it was not the trails, but the fracking wells that might come too close to his back door, and he was heartsick about having to abandon his dream of raising his children on that lovely spot. Well, much has transpired since those early days of concern last year about oil and gas development at Union Reservoir. Chris has moved his family and his business. And a lot of volunteers have spent a lot of time and effort to research the preliminary science about fracking, what our rights are, and what our legal options are. Against all odds, we've succeeded in building a ban into our city charter. We don't know at this point exactly how our ban will be opposed, and we wish those in authority, you in particular, would stop saying it won't hold up in court. It very well may, with new case law to come out of it. It may affect new legislation at the state level, which Lord knows Colorado needs. It already has garnered national attention, international, according to Jim, for Longmont, and it has inspired other communities up and down the Front Range. I'm here this evening to ask that you look ahead 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, when the future will judge your legacy. Use your authority not only to endorse the ban, defend the ban, but to grab this chance to keep our city a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Bree Irvin, followed by Joe Bassman.
There we go. Hello, members of council and Mayor Coombs. My name is Bree Irvin. I live at 1907 24th Avenue. I, too, want to thank you for your early declaration, and I am going to use that as an excuse to jump ahead to a new issue. I'm so glad you're going to support it because I'm a little freaked out right now, as I imagine you guys are. So there's another issue that is very exciting to me, and it was very overlooked in this election. With the passage of State Amendment 64, which, regardless of how you feel about that, there was one very small line item that snuck under the radar, which was the legalization of industrial hemp in Colorado. And that presents an amazing opportunity for growth here in Longmont, both in our industry and in our agriculture. It's not a drug, it's not a narcotic, it is a plant that is used and grown for fiber, that can be used for material, it can be used for building construction materials, for the green growing industry, green construction industry, which is a huge, huge industry right now, and growing by leaps and bounds. The oil from the hemp plant can be used as fuel. It can be used to make plastics, replacing some of the things that we currently need petroleum fuels for. And last, it can be used as food. Right now in Canada, they cannot keep up with our importation of their hemp. They cannot grow enough to keep up with the USA's demand for this product. Colorado is now in a position to get in on the ground floor of this amazing growing industry. And I would encourage the City Council of Longmont and the business people and agriculturalists here to take a look and see what opportunities it presents for our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joe Bassman, followed by Shelley Bassman.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. I'm Joe Bassman, 3414 Lakeview Circle, where I own the surface rights. And tonight I'd like to continue a story that we began here several months ago. My wife and I have been attending the COGCC setback meetings since they began. At the very first meeting, we heard many people in the industry state extremely emphatically that no changes would be even considered to the setback rules unless they were founded on pure scientific evidence. My wife very astutely asked the question, and what is the scientific evidence for the current setbacks? And the answer was that the current setbacks are not based on any health considerations whatsoever. They're based purely on safety, the safety of being able to put a fire out or to have emergency response at any single well location. The continuation of the story is that since that time, we've also been asking Thomas Kerr to provide us with the information regarding the 350-foot setback based on fire protection. We thought, well, at least if we're going to talk to them about science, let's start with their information. Well, it turns out, and we just found this last week after several times of asking Mr. Kerr, that in fact, the study that he cited from Alberta, Canada does not exist. that they don't even have sound information whatsoever, other than perhaps hearsay, for the establishment of the 350-foot setback. So what I'm trying to say is that the science of the COGCC turns out to be illusionary, even though they challenge us to fight them based on science. This makes me think of the law, where we know they have a stranglehold on the laws in the state and on our legislature. And I urge you to continue to support, to vigorously defend Longmont City Charter, specifically Article 16, in case we're threatened by the state. And let's get down into the details and establish that our law protects our health and is important to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Shelley Bassman, followed by Kay Fissinger.
I'm Shelley Bassman, 3414 Lakeview Circle, also on the surface. Yeah, Joe and I, it was a 9-month process from February until a month or so ago. Once a month meetings, and then towards the end, twice a month meetings with setback the stakeholders meeting to determine whether the state, the COGCs, should revisit the setbacks. And they began by emphatically saying no new setbacks. And that was from a COGCC person. It ended with now they are considering setback changes. Not much, not any. My understanding is that they are quite emphatic about keeping the 350 feet from a building. This is not from a property line. Chris was faced with losing the use of his backyard. The COGCC has a dual mandate. It is to encourage the exploration and production of hydrocarbons, oil and gas, while, that is the word, while protecting human health, safety, welfare, the environment, and wildlife. There is no scientific study, the industry won't permit it, hasn't permitted it to date, about what is a safe setback. There are some scientific studies which the industry dismisses out of hand, that indicating a quarter of a mile. Anyway, Longmont's ban would not, with the horizontal drilling, Longmont can be, minerals can be reached horizontally. Yes, they can. That's Ms. Sarah Landry. Well, Ms. Sarah Landry said, oh, no, you have to have all the mineral rights lined up in a row for them to go through. They can force pool anybody who doesn't go along with that. I want you to vigorously defend Longmont's Article 16 of our city charter. It protects, it does what the state is refusing to do for the people of Longmont. And you too took an oath to defend, to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Kay Fissinger, followed by Michael Belmont.
Kay Fissinger, 2199 Creekside Drive. We've come a long way since October 2011, when a stroke of fate alerted us to the imminent plans to drill for oil and gas in Longmont using the toxic practice of hydraulic fracking. A train wreck, a head-on collision, was barreling down the tracks, but concerned and motivated people in Longmont were able to flip the control switch and send the out-of-control train onto a different track. On November 6th, the people of Longmont resoundingly stated that fracking does not belong inside Longmont. This was not a narrow decision. It was a mandate to the elected officials of Longmont, and I might add to the staff of the city of Longmont. Article 16, the Longmont Public Health, Safety, and Wellness Act, is now officially the law in Longmont. On November 22nd, the charter amendment was published in the Longmont Times Call, the last legal action required to complete the will of the people. 4 of you opposed Article 16, and I believe that you still do, in spite of your oath to uphold the city's charter. Many of you received campaign support in 2009 or 2011 from an organization whose mission it is to extract resources at any and all costs to the people, and to do this with outrageous assertions, indeed blatant lies, to accomplish this end. One of you is employed by CASI, Colorado Association of Commerce and Industry, who sponsored the so-called rally recently on the Capitol steps in support of fracking. The proper name for that action is called astroturfing, as compared to grassroots action, though it tried to look like that. I hope none of you will associate yourselves behind the scenes with those who would seek to overturn the will of the Longmont people. I'm confident that I speak for the overwhelming majority of Longmont voters when I say that we hope that Governor Hickenlooper, the Attorney General of the state of Colorado, the oil and gas industry, and others will have the good judgment and the moral compass to refrain from attacking the people of Longmont by attacking the Health, Safety, and Wellness Act. Time will tell. If they fail to hear and support the message that was delivered in Longmont, there will be consequences. Opposition to toxic, dangerous practice of hydraulic fracking is growing daily. Business as usual will not be tolerated when our health, safety, property values, and quality of life are threatened on behalf of what my father used to derisively call the almighty dollar. This has never been, nor will it ever be, a partisan issue, because it's about people, all people. However, since 5 of you are Republicans, you might be interested to know that my father was a Republican. He had a moral compass. I hope you do too. Thank you.
Michael Belmont.
Thank you, Mayor. Michael Belmont, 841 Tenacity Drive in Longmont. In matters oil and gas, the time for divisiveness is past. The time to articulate and emphasize our differences is over. We must now stand together in our common cause to defend what is now Article 16 in the city charter that prohibits hydraulic fracturing and the disposal of its waste in the city limits. To demonstrate that solidarity on behalf of the citizens of Longmont, I urge the council to show by some action that you are in concert with their mandate and proactively are preparing for its defense. Thank you, Dennis, for your proclamation tonight of support, which is a perfect backdrop for the actions that will no doubt follow soon from council. You might ask, but why would we do anything unless and until there is a lawsuit? On the surface, that question might appear logical. However, let's consider the following. A challenge to Article 16 is a near certainty in light of our governor's public comments in this town and the intent expressed by the oil and gas industry. Such a promised lawsuit can reasonably be compared to an invading force that would challenge a population, in this case Longmont citizens. No reasonable populace, be it the United States of America or the city of Longmont, would stand by expecting a foreign invasion and wait for the day of the actual invasion before preparing a defense strategy, training troops, building its defense arsenal. Thus, once again, I urge the council to demonstrate publicly with some action that you are in concert with your citizens by proactively and responsibly preparing for the defense of Article 16. We do not expect you to share the details of your legal strategy. However, it is exquisitely appropriate for you to apprise us of the steps you are taking and plan to take. I note the new Longmont logo prominently displayed behind you that reads, "You belong in Longmont, Colorado." A wonderful phrase. May I respectfully, if not humorously, suggest a first action and that being to add a bit to that logo so that it reads, "You belong in Longmont, Colorado, unless you're a fracker." How about that for a start?
Thank you. Michael Schwarzmeyer. Schwarzmeyer. Sorry about that.
I am Michael Schnauzmeyer, 12001 Twilight Street, Longmont. Mayor Coombs and council members, thank you all for your support in regards to the St. Vrain River Corridor. The purpose of this initiative is the restoration of the river into becoming a primary asset of the city, while also addressing a primary responsibility of the city, public safety and environmental safety. A business model for the St. Vrain. In committing to the creation of a new business, one would typically first have a vision and a business plan for its economic viability, physical implementation, growth, operation, and financial sustainability. Also, one would not physically construct a building for that new business without first having an architectural plan for the effective use, functionality, appearance of that building. Finally, to construct that building, for that business, one must first, of necessity, construct a concrete foundation. With respect to the transformation of the St. Vrain, we may well be on a path analogous to constructing the foundation for a project without first having a vision, plan, and financial model for what we are building. The construction of bridges and channelization work is the necessary and literally concrete foundation for the project. While it is necessary, it is not sufficient. A river corridor master planning effort is equivalent to the creation of the vision, architectural design, and business model of the St. Vrain. It is about the effective and comprehensive land use, functionality, appearance, and citizen engagement. It is also, and more critically, about developing a plan for the actual strategic implementation of this transformation and how this will be made economically and financially viable. It is about demonstrating the exceptional benefits to the city and how ultimately it will return 100-fold on the investment of the planning effort. Strategically transforming a potential $300 million liability into a $300 million asset will only be accomplished over decades and with tens of millions of dollars in CIP improvements. Is it the wisest use of public funds to move forward without a vision and planning? Versus architectural fees of 7 to 10%, a river corridor master planning effort is less than 1/10 of the tens of millions in CIPs and less than 1/10,000th of the hundreds and millions in economic impact. This is a valuable investment. The underlying issue is ultimately not about work plan items and budgets. It is rather one of our fundamental belief about what the city is capable of and committed to achieving. What will be our fate, good or great? Mother Nature does not wait. Thank you.
Thank you. That ends public invited to be heard.
Mayor Coombs, we have second reading ordinances. The first item is Airport Road annexation. We have a resolution and an ordinance. Resolution 2012-99, finding that the petition for annexation of parcels of land located in Boulder County, state of Colorado, known as Airport Road annexation, is eligible for annexation. And the ordinance is Ordinance 2012-77, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the Airport Road annexation, generally located along Airport Road between 17th Avenue and Rogers Road, and zoning the property P for public and GI for general industrial. We do not have a formal staff presentation, but Ava Pahajewski is here to answer questions.
All right. Does anybody have any questions from council? Seeing no one, can we have I'm going to open the public invited to be heard on this issue. The public hearing on this issue. Is there anyone from the audience who wishes to speak on this issue at this time? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Councilmember Santos.
Mayor, I would move, wow, my computer just went dead. I would move Resolution 2012-99.
All right. Let's vote on that. That passes 7-0. Councilmember, yeah, we got to turn it to pass. Is there anybody who'd like to speak on public hearing on the ordinance 2012-77? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Samori.
I would move ordinance 2012-77.
Second.
All right, let's vote. That passes 7-0.
Your next item is ordinance 2012-79, a bill for an ordinance amending the Title 20 of the Longmont Municipal Code on floodplain regulations. We do not have a staff presentation on this, but I believe Nick Wolfram is here to answer questions.
Okay. Is there anyone from council who'd like to ask any questions? I guess seeing no one, I'll open this item for public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing item on this item at this point. Councilmember Samori.
I would move ordinance 2012-79.
Second.
All right, let's vote. That passes 7-0.
Next item is ordinance 2012-80, a bill for an ordinance amending Chapter 14.12 of the Longmont Municipal Code on solid waste collection. Again, we have no formal staff presentation. Bob Allen is here to address questions.
Okay, are there any questions from council? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing on this item. Is there anybody from the audience that'd like to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Samori.
I would move ordinance 2012-80.
Second.
All right, let's vote. Alex? Okay, it passes 7-0.
Your next item is ordinance 2012-81, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for the expenses and liabilities of the city of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2012. Again, no staff presentation. Teresa Malloy is here to address questions.
Okay. Any questions from council? Okay, I'll open this up for a public hearing. Anybody from the audience like to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Samori.
Keep going. I'd move ordinance 2012-81.
All right, let's vote. Okay, passes 7-0.
Your next item is ordinance 2012-82, a bill for an ordinance amending the 2012-2016 capital improvement program. Again, no staff presentation.
All right, seeing no questions from council, I'll open the public hearing on this item. Seeing, would anybody like to speak? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Witt.
I would like to move ordinance 2012-82.
All right, let's vote. That passes 7-0.
Your next item is ordinance 2012-83, a bill for an ordinance amending Chapter 14.26 of the Longmont Municipal Code on stormwater quality. And we do have a staff presentation on this from Cal Youngberg. Oh, I guess maybe not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening. Mayor, members of council, Cal Youngberg, Environmental Services Manager for Public Works and Natural Resources. You saw this ordinance come to you last year in 2011. We had some pretty major changes at that time, which revised a lot of it to simplify the ordinance, to bring it into compliance with state requirements, but also looking very critically at those state requirements to see where we would match up and where we could actually make our process better and still meet them. This is a further refinement. There was a state, what they might call a drive-through audit about a year ago of some of our construction sites, which prompted some communication between us and the state, and we ended up changing some of our ordinance to address their comments at that time. We also took the opportunity to clean a few other things up. So a lot of this is housekeeping. Much of this is just to meet the state's CDPHE requirements. And probably the most fun thing was getting rid of another fee. We got rid of a reinspection fee that we've never charged and didn't see any real point in continuing with. We can cover that under our inspection fees that are charged under the regular part of the ordinance. The other major change is probably the definition of emergency firefighting. The state has been pretty adamant that only emergency firefighting is exempt from stormwater regulations. So something like a firefighting center, like our training center is not. That actually is not quite the same language as in the federal regulation, but it's in the state regulation, so we had to put it in here. That's kind of being talked about with the Stormwater Council and some of our group, and so I think that may come back in the future. But I'd be happy to answer any questions about the changes.
Councilmember Witt.
I recall this because that's when you earned the title of Grand Master Youngberg. I do believe. Is that? Yeah. Yeah, that's it. So you've done it again. Thank you.
Councilmember Finley.
I have a question. Is this the ordinance, do I recall this, that this also applies to people washing their cars in their driveways?
Mayor and Councilmember Finley, actually washing cars is exempt. What we're trying to do is do public education. As part of this permitting process, or our requirements under the state, we were trying to do public education to educate people about where you can wash things and what detergents are a problem, regardless if they're biodegradable or not, and that kind of thing. It's really more of a public education and outreach part of this program. It's not a prohibition. EPA was very careful not to prohibit a lot of those kinds of things because they're impossible to regulate, and B, why would you want to? And secondly, it's really a behavior change that takes place over time as people get aware of different things. We've tried to promote use of car washes. Our Keep It Clean partnership actually prepared some stickers and some PR outreach things for car washes last year, and so we also handed some of that out at Rhythm on the River. So we're trying to say people can use a car wash that actually goes in the sanitary sewer where we can treat it, not out on the street. But no, it's not prohibited.
Thank you, Cal.
Thank you.
I'll open this for public hearing now. Is there anybody like to ask any questions? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Samori.
I'd move ordinance 2012-83.
Second.
All right, let's vote. That passes 7-0.
Next, we have the consent agenda. Item 9A is ordinance 2012-86, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for the expenses and liabilities of the city of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2012. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for December 18th. Ordinance 2012-87, a bill for an ordinance amending the 2012-2016 capital improvement program. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for December 18th. Item 9C is ordinance 2012-88, a bill for an ordinance amending section 3.04.885 of the Longmont Municipal Code, adopting an amended and restated pension plan. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for December 18th. Item 9D is ordinance 2012-89, a bill for an ordinance amending chapters 10.20, 13.37, and 15.05 of the Longmont Municipal Code on noise ordinance. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for December 18th, 2012. Item 9E is ordinance 2012-90, a bill for an ordinance establishing a charge of 50 cents per month for emergency telephone service 911 for wired and wireless subscribers in Longmont for the calendar year 2012. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for December 18th. Item 9F is ordinance 2012-91, a bill for an ordinance approving the reservoir recreation lease extension between the city and Lake McIntosh Reservoir Company. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for December 18th. Item 9G is ordinance 2012-92, a bill for an ordinance designating the Ryder House at 352 Collier Street as a local historic landmark. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for December 18th. Item 9H includes two ordinances, both of which will have a public hearing and second reading scheduled for December 18th. The first one is ordinance 2012-93, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the First and Main substation rezoning from MI to P for public, generally located south of 2nd Avenue, east of Terry Street, west of Coffin Street, and north of 1st Avenue. The second ordinance is ordinance 2012-94, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the First and Main rezoning from MI to MU mixed use, generally located south of 2nd Avenue, east of Pratt Parkway, west of Martin Street, and north of the St. Vrain River. Item 9I includes four ordinances. The public hearing second reading on all of these is scheduled for December 18th. The first ordinance is ordinance 2012-95, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to lease the real property known as Vance Brand Municipal Airport Hangar H44F to Mile High Skydiving, Inc. The second ordinance is ordinance 2012-96, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city to lease the real property known as Vance Brand Municipal Airport Hangar Parcel H56 to Euless G. Buse, Joanne M. Buse, and Eric L. Buse. The next ordinance is ordinance 2012-97, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city to lease the real property known as Vance Brand Municipal Airport Hangar Parcel H34C to Frank Cesares. The last ordinance on this item is ordinance 2012-98, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to lease the real property known as Vance Brand Municipal Airport Hangar HB32B to HP Investment Properties. Item 9J includes a resolution and an ordinance. The resolution is R 2012-100, authorizing an agreement between the city and 1675 Range LLC for the purchase of real property known as 133 South Main. The ordinance is ordinance 2012-99, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to lease the real property known as 133 South Main to Phyllis A. Holst. The public hearing second reading of this ordinance is scheduled for December 18th. Item 9K is resolution 2012-101, authorizing a one-year lease agreement between the city of Longmont as lessee and the Archdiocese of Denver as lessor for use of the St. John the Baptist Church parking lot for Longmont City employee parking. Item 9L is resolution 2012-102, authorizing a loan from fund balance in the city's fleet fund to the Longmont Urban Renewal Authority and providing for repayment of the loan from the Longmont Urban Renewal Authority. And item 9M is resolution R 2012-103, approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the state of Colorado Department of Public Safety for a Justice Assistance Grant. And Mayor Coombs' staff would like to pull item 9A for a short presentation.
Councilmember Larson.
I'd like to pull K, please.
Councilmember Bagley.
I'd like to pull D, E, and H.
Okay. Councilmember Witt.
I would move the consent agenda minus A, D, E, H, and K.
Let's vote. All right, that passes 7-0.
The first item pulled was, let me get to it. Item D, which is the noise ordinance. Oh, A, I'm sorry. We pulled A. Teresa.
Mayor Coombs and City Council, I'm Teresa Malloy, the city's budget manager, and this is our final appropriation for the year. So it may be slightly larger than some of those you've seen recently. It does include funding for the St. Vrain River Corridor Plan, and the reason we wanted to pull it this evening was to give you a brief update on that project. So I believe Brad's going to start that for you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Brad Scola with the Economic Development Department. And we were before you in October to talk a little bit about the St. Vrain River Corridor and give you a work plan update at that time. And we talked to you about the status of the planning work that Mr. Schnatzmeyer addressed a little bit earlier. We have prepared an RFP, and as indicated in the supplemental information to this council we do need to go out for an RFP on this as opposed to utilizing the existing Parks Master Plan consultant because the scope is sufficiently different that we need to make that offering available to interested parties. In the council you see a couple of bullets in there which are talking about what would be the main elements of the study that we're proposing. We did mention to you before that when we did have a quote provided to us from MIG, who is doing the master plan study, that there was a quote of about $165,000 for them to do a study along the lines. It was perhaps not as comprehensive as the study that we've talked about at the council retreat, or what Mr. Schnatzmeyer has talked about. However, that is one quote that we received. So we're back to you with the appropriation ordinance and our recommendations with respect to funding, and you can see it at the bottom of the supplemental page. And I think if you have any questions, Jim and Harold and I can answer those.
Anybody have any questions? All right. It's like we all did our homework.
Thank you.
Councilmember Witt?
I would like to move 9A.
Second.
Let's vote. Passes 7-0. Councilmember Santos.
Teresa. So with this appropriation of $34,794, what is our council contingency fund for the remainder of the year?
Mayor Coombs and Mayor Pro Tem Santos, so your council contingency this evening is at 73, just a little over 73,000. So without, if we take this away, it would be at what, 39,000? If my math is correct.
Sounds about right. Thank you.
The next item pulled was ordinance 2012-89. That is the noise ordinance, and I am here to address any questions you may have.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I guess I've got a few questions. Okay, so first of all, trash collection, page 238 or page 4, 238 of the packet, lines 14 through 15. No refuse loading or collection shall take place between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. So what we are telling the citizens is that if we get our trash out by 7 a.m., it will not be collected 1 minute before, or we're in violation of this ordinance. Correct? So,
Dale is shaking his head yes.
Okay, so
that's true.
All right, so 7 a.m. All right, cool. All right, so because that's basically who we're regulating, our own city trucks, and right.
There's also, I think, commercial regulation in terms of, right.
Okay. That's good news. Good news. All right. Next, I guess I'm a little uncomfortable on page 240 of the packet, lines 5 through 8, specifically lines 7 and 8. There's an exemption for other activities to the extent they are approved and limited by the city. In the description of this particular ordinance, the way it's described and interpreted by the city staff says the police respond to these noise complaints, verify that the event has a special event permit, and then makes a judgment call about what is reasonable versus unreasonable noise levels. I'm never a big fan of, just leaving it up. I mean, I love Chief Butler, but in general, I think it's a bad idea to leave just discretion up to, law enforcement They're not to judge or interpret, they're to enforce. And so I just feel uncomfortable with and other activities to the extent they are approved and limited by the city. I think they need to be approved beforehand by the city, and once approved, we should leave people alone.
Could I just ask you which section that is? I don't have your page.
It's section 3, paragraph 5, little I. So page 6 of the actual ordinance, lines 7 and 8. I'd just like to make it, I don't want to start writing for Mr. May, but I'd like to see it pre-approved and limitations stated beforehand rather than the police showing up. And we have a wonderful police force, but who knows what's going to happen in 20 years. And then last but not least, I guess I also have some concerns about the word amplification. So is this going to apply to maybe a protest on Main and Longs Peak or whatever? If they've got a bullhorn or a whistle, it's amplified sound. And so, I mean, I'd have some concern that by saying amplified sound, and if you can't hear anybody beyond 25 feet, it's reducing people's, free speech, the right. I mean, you don't have a right to be heard, but I just fear the ordinance. There's a lot of ways to interpret amplified speech.
Mayor Coombs and members of council, we did add a definition of amplified sound, which means that is broadcast with the utilization of amplification device to increase the volume. So that would include a bullhorn.
Or a whistle.
The free speech.
Or like a megaphone that you use at the high school.
Right. We are not impeding folks' free speech. They are free to stand on a corner and protest, but if they use amplified sound, they have to get a special event permit to do that.
Okay,
So,
and are there rules at the city as to what we do or do not approve? If anybody applies for a permit, will they be given that permit, or?
generally, yes. They do have to, with the changes in this ordinance, they do have to keep their sound level within 85 decibels beyond the perimeter of the area that they designate as the area that
How high is
the special event.
How high is 85
Pretty high.
decibels? Pretty high.
Yeah, in fact, that noise decibel level came from our recreation department. It's the one that they use for their concerts down here on 4th Avenue.
Okay, that resolves that concern. That's plenty loud then. We're good. And then, so I guess we're just down to, I guess my only concern then would be with the clarification of the trash collection times and the protest resolved or concern resolved, I guess then it just becomes, could we add language to the ordinance that makes it clear that, activities once approved and pre-limited or limitations placed beforehand, that we're not leaving it up to our law enforcement in order to basically interpret statute on the fly.
Mayor Coombs and members of council, I will have to check with the committee that put this all together, including the police department, and find out why the language was this way. So I will get back to you on second reading,
Perfect.
either with amended language that fits what you're asking for or a reason why it is worded this way.
I'm only one of 7. Do I need to make a motion? Okay, I will pass it off to Councilmember Levison.
Councilmember Levison.
Thank you. I guess, Councilmember Bagley, I'm not reading I'm on the same page as you are, but I'm not reading in what you're reading. It says the exemptions would be for limitations of this section, which the section was on what would be exempt sound. Actually, it says noises for parade. The section you're looking at is noises resulting from authorized activities, to the extent they are approved and limited by the city. One thing that's just personal experience, when there are events that are permitted in neighborhoods, sometimes the police are called because either maybe it's the weather conditions that day, but the sound seems to be louder than the 80 decibels. And so I think that having the police come with a meter and being able to say it's more than 80 decibels and be able to shut it down, I think is appropriate for events that are occurring in neighborhoods that might get out of hand. And I guess that your objection is that the police, once it's permitted, they shouldn't have to show up for any reason. I guess maybe I'm not understanding.
Councilmember Santos?
Thank you, Mayor. And before Councilmember Bagley answers, in here, I remember reading that the police department can revoke the permit until it's cured.
That's correct.
Okay. So that takes pretty much care of that problem. And also it says that the clerk's office does have decibel readers, that you have a limited quantity of decibel readers. So does PD have decibel readers, Mike?
Mayor Coombs and members of council, it is really the responsibility of the event organizer to show that they're within any sound limits that are outlined on their permit. And so that, I believe, is how this language is written, so that if we limit their noise levels on their permit, they have a responsibility if the police are called to show that they're within those limits, which is why we have those decibel meters available for checkout by the event organizers within our department.
And something I asked you earlier today, I wasn't going to bring it up this evening, but since people are talking, I'm surprised this got pulled. Is there a central location for dispatch when dispatch gets a phone call that I live across the street from Roosevelt Park and there's a festival going on, I think they're too loud? When they call dispatch and say, I think they're too loud, is there a way that dispatch can say there is a permitted event there, to reassure the residents that yes, that there is a permitted event there, but also yes, we might have to go out and check to see what the decibel level readings are.
Mayor Coombs and members of council, we last year did attempt to put a file with all of the permits on it on our shared drive that anybody could look at, including dispatch or patrol. We wanted patrol to be able to have access to those in case they were called. That didn't work really well, so we are in the process right now of working with dispatch and patrol to see how we can make that easier for them to have that information available. It is out there. They don't always have access to it in their cars, so we're working with dispatch to see how we can make them make that information available to them so they can relay it to the officers.
Thanks, Valerie.
Councilmember Bagley?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Correct me if I'm wrong, the whole reason for the exception is because they don't have to comply with the decimal reading. That's how I'm reading the ordinance.
They do not have to comply. If they have a permit that outlines what their decibel level is, they do not have to comply with the daytime noise decibels in the rest of the code.
Okay, great. I guess my only concern is the interpretation in the packet that states that the police shall make a judgment call about what is reasonable versus unreasonable noise levels. I guess when in reading the statute, I just want to be perfectly clear that we're referencing that the city states a decibel level, that they basically set the rules, the norms, etc., rather than our police making a judgment call based on statute. I just want everyone to know the rules before they go out there. That's my only concern.
Correct, and our permits do state the decibel level they have to maintain.
Then that would resolve my concern.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Finley?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. My concern would be in this particular area, sorry. I did get a phone call about the noise from a football game at Longmont High that went past 11 o'clock. And I would want to make sure that those kind of things that are bothering the neighbors out there, that we're, we've let them know that that's an issue and that they need to be careful about that.
Okay. Staff has been working with people from the St. Vrain Valley School District regarding noise at Longmont High School. They have been working with the neighbors as well. I know the most recent complaint was the cannon, which we didn't know anything about until it was. and that one game, they made a lot of touchdowns, so it really was an issue. And I do know that they're not using that cannon anymore. Last year, we had some noise complaints regarding the sound from the amplification system. St. Vrain did turn that down based on the work they did with the neighborhood.
Councilmember Witt?
Well, as long as we're talking about football, way to go, Silver Creek, state champs, 3A. And if there's no other questions, I'd like to move ordinance 2012-89.
Second.
All right, let's vote. Okay, that passes 7-0.
Your next item is ordinance 2012-90, and that's the 911 wireless subscriber.
Councilmember Bagley.
I just have a quick question. Why 50 cents? I was just curious as to why 50 cents.
Push the button.
Good evening. I'm Paul Zuber. I'm the Deputy Chief of the Information Services Division of the Police Department. And I just recently become a member of the Brexit Board. So this is all brand new to me. But 50 cents has been charged on your monthly telephone bill since 1999. So what it does is it provides the equipment and the software and hardware we need to run our public service answering points, our PSAPs, our dispatch centers. So there is a very real possibility that sometime in the future we will come to you and ask for more money, because 50 cents has been what we've been charging since 99. So it's not enough anymore. So, but we've done quite a lot with it, but it's just been that way for a long, long time. So that's why it's 50 cents. Other PSAPs or other authorities in the state charge other different amounts. There's some authorities that charge 70 cents, some that charge $1. I've heard of one that charges $2. So we're actually one of the lowest ones in the state for now.
Thank you. And with that, I move that we pass ordinance 2012-90.
Second.
All right, let's vote. Passes 7-0.
The next item is H, and Phil Greenwald is here to address your questions.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I've just got a general question, and that is, are we sure about First and Main? Whenever we talk about this, I personally don't quite get it, and just want to make sure. I mean, why not Ken Pratt and Main? Why not Main and Highway 66? I mean, why First and Main? I drive by there, and there's a power station, there's a sewage plant, there's the old. I just drive by, and so in graduate school, Wayne Boss shared a story about a group of students going off to Abilene, and they basically said, "Where do you want to go? What do you want to do today?" And somebody said, "Anybody want to go to Abilene?" And they all said, "Sure." They drove 6 hours, got there, got out of the car, and nobody wanted to go. It's just that somebody said, "You want to go?" And then everybody just wound up going. And so I know that we've got the river corridor. I know we got the mall. My question is, why First and Main? Is that the appropriate area? Whose idea was it? I mean, every time we talk about it, I think that question. So I'm putting it out on the table, and I just want to know why First and Main. I'm not real passionate about it, and I have yet to find anybody who really is. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. It's just that if I'm on council and I'm going to be voting for it, I want to know why we're doing it.
It comes member of council. My name is Phil Greenwald, transportation planner with the city's economic development department. The reason for First and Main is that it's been studied for a number of years, and the point of bringing the First and Main station at that location was the idea that we had existing rail in that area, and the idea that Northwest Rail was going to use that Burlington Northern line and come into downtown. And the big push was, originally it was Twin Peaks Mall was going to be the endpoint for the Longmont station on that Northwest Rail line. And the point was that we needed something that was closer to downtown, something more in the walkable area, instead of landing a rail station in a very car-centric portion of town. We wanted to bring it into this area that was more walkable. And it wasn't just we, it was a team of folks, including the Regional Transportation District, the City of Longmont, working with consultants. And so the idea was to, where did that railroad come in and come closest to our downtown, and that was that First and Main site. Then you'll know that when we did the First and Main planning portion that was just recently concluded in June, really, there was a market study done for this area. This is also in the Southeast Urban Renewal area. So it worked well with things that we were doing for redevelopment in this area, regardless of rail or bus. We kind of always talk about that it's not rail or bus that's driving this. It really is the market that's driving the idea that we want to redevelop some of this portion. And again, we meaning the city at large and what we've heard from the citizens and the developers. So that's First and Main, and then this is really the rezoning of that area that allows developers to come in and get greater uses in that land that's in that area. I hope that answers your question, but I certainly can follow up.
Did it answer your question, Brian?
No. Thank you, Mayor Coombs. So I guess, what I'm hearing is it was originally because we were going to have a train station there. So we don't know if the train station's coming. And so my question is, if you've got finite resources, meaning finite time, finite money, are there other areas, given that the train might not come to First and Main, that it would be better spent, whether it be the river corridor, whether it be Twin Peaks, whether it be another area of town, given that RTD is now a big question mark?
Mayor Coombs and Councilmember Bagley, the idea is that RTD is really only looking at First and Main for their station area, and that's the only place that they're going to commit funds as part of the Fast Tracks plan right now. So there really is no other place that RTD is going to start looking for that $17 million commitment except at this First and Main area.
But what I'm saying is that still might not come.
The idea that it might not come is out there as far as kind of our opinions, but I think RTD is committed to getting the rail here someday, if not within the next 20 to 30 years. They still are saying 2044, and that's the best we've got to go on. And so they're committed to that, and that's why they're still sticking with First and Main, and we're still sticking with First and Main.
I'm going to vote for this, but my point is that I just don't. I mean, I think it's great. We can rezone it, mixed use. I think in general that's a good idea, but I just think that focusing a lot of effort in First and Main. I know that there have been a lot of studies done, a lot of effort put in. I guess I just still have some question marks, meaning that I don't think RTD's coming. And I think that if you look at the development opportunities, there might be some developers that have bought land there and would profit from this. But you mentioned market studies. I mean, I've seen pictures, and I guess what I'm saying is I'm not really buying into First and Main. I never have. I mean, we might go forward with it. I'm just not sold on it yet. And so I just wanted to voice my opinion as one of 7 that I think we have a lot of work to do. And I would not be for just throwing our money and resources into First and Main when we've got other opportunities. So I will move at this point unless there's other comments by council members. But the
you got other people in the queue. I want to
go ahead. Sorry, I thought I didn't see it on.
Councilmember Levison.
Thank you. So I'll go back a little bit in time. The city council way back in 05-06 started looking at reviving the Urban Renewal Authority that had lapsed, but primarily to look at planning for this area of town, which you're not the only one thinking that it's a dead zone, but the focus on this area and specifically on First and Main, it works, number one, it works without the transit component. And if you look at just the sheer economics, it makes no economic sense at all for the city to continue to run infrastructure past lots that are being underutilized as far as what their true economic potential is. And frankly, when you look at the kind of trends in cities right now, people are not wanting the suburban home on a quarter of an acre product anymore. And so what we've seen lately in a trend, especially a trend the city council's already supported with, and the DDA with a few millions of dollars of incentives at Roosevelt Park. Imagine this is the area of the other end of Main Street with other end of the type of maybe even more intensive development than the Roosevelt Park place apartments and mixed use. If you look at the potential in the future for what would happen in our city, this could be a renaissance area, much like the beginning of Prospect was that new urbanist neighborhood. This is the old new urbanist, and we're right at the genesis of the revitalization of this area. So the market studies that have been done, it works without the transit, and certainly since RTD has been a focus, the bus hub here, it really makes sense that we start looking at the ability to have this the zoning appropriate to what the future holds for this area.
Mayor, may I just clarify one item that was mentioned? We're not talking as a city putting any money necessarily at this time into that.
I was hoping you were going to clarify that it's RTD's money, not our money. Councilmember Santos?
Thank you. It's that magical, mystical $17 million that we have sent into RTD that they're supposed to build. You know, they moved their hub off of Kimbark, moved it to, Kimbark, moved it to 8th and Kaufman, because they used to live, we used to have our office right across the street. Knowing the fact they were going to go down the street to 1st and Main. Now, whether it's going to be on the west side or the east side of 287 remains to be seen. And again, as the mayor and Phil clarified, this isn't our money. As much as I would love for RTD to write us a check and we just put it away, knowing that we've received it. So, that should allay some fears there for you, Councilmember Bagley, is that while and as Councilmember Levinson said, we have Roosevelt Apartments on one end of the DDA corridor. This is another piece of that, hopefully, revitalization of the downtown and the downtown area on the south end of the city. So again, the money we're due from RTD, whether it's going to be start off as a bus station, which would be, at least there'd be some sort of redevelopment down there, and then potentially whether it could be turned into a rail station, whether it comes in from the west or from the east. So one way or another, hopefully it'll get here soon.
Councilmember Witt.
Thank you, Mayor. I also, when I was listening to Councilmember Levison, she said it exists whether or not absent transit. There will be bus. There will be bus. Train is not coming in the next 5 to 10 years, I wouldn't say, but buses, yes. And it's on one of the key, it's part of the flow, and that is a key place for there to be bus service. Now, when you're concerned about whether or not Fast Tracks is coming, good point. We're working on that, but we still have to plan for the transportation needs of our community, whether that involves a train or no train. And this is a key part of that. And this has been a community project for many years. And people who have come before us have looked at this. And as it fits in the transportation grid for the city, this is where it makes sense at this point. So, and if RTD wants to put their money in a specific spot that we've done the planning for, this is the spot. Here's our plans for them to invest money in our community. So that's kind of the reason why it's in the spot it's at. Whether it's train or bus, it mattereth not. We got a plan for the needs of our community.
Councilmember Samori.
Minor technicality. It is our money. It's money that we paid to RTD in RTD taxes. So we're just getting it back. And I'm going to jump ahead to Kay real quick. When we start discussing that, I need to recuse myself because I attend St. John the Baptist and I sit on their finance committee.
Councilmember Bagley.
I hear everybody. I mean, I hear what everybody's saying, but I have the opportunity to my in-laws drive up from Mexico, and I get to drive down to Denver, pick them up at the Greyhound bus station, send them off on Las Americas. I have yet to ever see a bus station where you go, wow, this is a thriving economic epicenter, financial activity. I just think that they're unrealistic expectations. I have yet to see a market study that I go, wow, that convinces me. I've seen drawings. I haven't seen a study. I just think, why not North Main? Why not? I guess what I'm saying is that at some point somebody said First and Main, and I see a sewage plant and a power station. And I'm just curious and wondering if there are other, River Corridor, for example. I'm just wondering if there are other better opportunities. So I'm going to vote for, I'll vote for, changing the zoning and letting the free market take its course. But I think that if you're holding out for a bus hub on if you're planning your future based on RTD, and based on what's already built there that's not going to be redeveloped, there's limited space and limited opportunity, and I think that we're wasting time when we could be focusing on other efforts to make South Longmont just awesome. That is my fear. It's only a fear at this point that I'm voicing, and that's all I have to say about that until I make a motion if no one else does.
Councilmember Samori. Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I'll wait till he's paying attention. Actually, some of us were just in Boston, and I took a mobile tour of some of their downtown areas where they're doing a lot of renovation. And some of those areas were much smaller than Longmont, and they had a lot of bus station hubs, if you want. And they are thriving, and they do bring a lot of foot traffic down, and businesses around there are growing, retail businesses, restaurants. And they are doing multi-use zoning where they're building apartments, etc. So it is an economic driver, or it can be an economic driver. And I believe that from all, I hate to use the word studies, but from all the research that has happened and occurred around First and Main, it can become that at some point. While I agree with you, short term, it may be a pipe dream. Long term, it may be a real dream.
Councilmember Witt.
And Councilmember Bagley, which of the studies that you've looked at have not convinced you? Which of the, so I assume that you've sat down with Phil and had him explain this to you, and you've talked to Councilmember Levison, who spent a great deal of time on this. I'm assuming that you've put the work into this to find this out, to really get a full flavor of what is going on. Yeah, you have? Okay, good. Okay, you've listened carefully. I would like to. Yeah, what's the number?
H.
I would like to move 9H.
Yeah.
And
93 and 94.
I would like to move ordinance 2012-93 and 94.
Second.
Okay.
As much as
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor. As much as I appreciate Councilmember Witt's lecture or innuendos, I don't appreciate being, I guess, called out on my studying. But I'm just voicing a concern, and that's it. I have sat here during the same meetings you have. I have access to the same information you have. I have yet to see any numbers about economic benefit or gain. I've seen some pictures. That's it. And I've heard promises that have been empty by RTD. Period. Just voicing concern. That's it. And I think that Councilmember Levison, I appreciate her time and effort, as I do all my fellow council members, but none of us can predict the future. And there are red flags that I'm voicing tonight. Period. Full stop. And I don't appreciate the innuendo. But thank you.
Eugene, could you clarify whether we can do both these at the same time? Or?
Mayor and Council, I would recommend voting on the ordinances separately.
Okay.
It's under one item.
I'd recommend voting on ordinances separately.
Okay. Councilmember Levison.
Councilmember Bagley, nobody was, the intention was not to put you on the spot or make you feel uncomfortable, but those, no, it wasn't. Just, let's not go there, okay? Let's be nice tonight. And so, part of, it's hard when you're looking at the market study was done, the numbers and everything were presented. We may not have gotten all that unless we wanted to read another 200 pages to get those, the economic analysis numbers, but they were done, and I did review them. And the other part of it is when you're looking at essentially the area of town where everybody has written off, there's your next opportunity. People never thought that Longmont would develop past the cemetery, and it did. Nobody would ever think that we would build out beyond Airport Road, and we did. So instead of looking at things on the outskirts now, the focus now becomes internal, because that's where the raw land and the opportunities is. And, again, this is not something anywhere new. I mean, councils beginning in 05 and 06 were looking at this and the various opportunities. When it was, the vote for fast tracks was in 04, and after the vote, they didn't even know for a couple of years where they were even going to put the station. So, we were looking at possibilities besides what Councilmember Santos noted as the mall, the sugar factory, former site, the sugar factory was in play. And the reason we ended up with this area is that it was central and it absolutely made sense, whether it's bus or train. And in fact, the chance that neither of them would be a central focus of this area was also taken into account when the consultant was doing its work, and they were looking at the economic possibilities for redevelopment, or in some respects, there's never been development in some areas east of Main Street. It's just been flat land. It might have been used as extra parking for Butterball, but all that is a blank canvas, and we took care of the smell with the wastewater treatment plant. It may not look like a natural pond, but you put a little frosted glass on that side. You want to look at the mountains anyway. So with some of these aspects, there are challenges, and frankly, this is a new frontier. And I'm an extremely optimistic person when it comes to what can happen in our community, and I just would like to, I'll give you a shot in the arm of optimism for this area of town, because I think it's absolutely great. 30 years ago, nobody thought Lodo would come back either, and Lodo did, and it came screaming back. So I think we have the same challenge here, but also that opportunity, and people will be doing something, and this is just that first step.
Councilmember Rett.
I need to amend my motion to move ordinance 2012-93 and to also apologize to Councilmember Bagley for giving offense.
Second. All right, let's vote on ordinance 2012-93. That passes 7-0. Councilmember Levison?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to move ordinance 2012-94.
Second. All right, let's vote on 94. That passes 7-0. So, okay.
Mayor Coombs, your next item is Resolution 2012-101. This is the lease of St. John the Baptist Church parking, and Bill Powell's here to address questions. You need to.
Thanks, Gabe. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Bill Powell, Public Works and Natural Resources, Customer Services and Marketing Manager. I'm here to answer any questions you might have on this issue.
Okay, not really.
Councilmember Levison?
Thank you. Sorry to jump the gun, Mayor. Not really a question, but this issue in particular, I remember one of the first years we looked at budget, I said, what the heck are we doing? Leasing, space when we have we were beginning to have difficulties in the budget, and I think Councilmember Santos might have remembered me in that meeting almost pulling my hair out and saying, I think at that time it was around $20,000 for less than 100 parking spaces. And I know we've been working on this, but in these tough economic times, to say we're going to use $25,300 in 46 parking spaces, I think we could do a little bit better. Looking and hearing council members over time wondering what we're doing with our council contingency budget and trying to get our reserves up. I understand that a lot of city employees in different areas of the city that have more space and a bigger parking lot that's dedicated to their buildings don't pay anything for parking. But frankly, in all the years that I've worked in universities and in downtown areas, I have never had free parking as a benefit, number one. And if it was a benefit, then I'd probably get charged taxes on it too. But I really think that this is really not a prudent use of taxpayer money, especially since we did put a chunk of money. We bought that parking lot and developed it near Jester's. And, I see many people not asking us to build new parking lots so that we can have one block access to events downtown. People park in the neighborhood. And I'm also suggesting perhaps maybe we should see if we could have 20 people take up an offer to get a wellness point if they want to park on the streets in his lovely historic downtown Longmont. They can certainly park in front of my house. I can guarantee it's safe in front of my house. I'll keep an eye on their car all day long. And they'll get a little bit of exercise. And, even when it's getting a little darker, I was walking my dogs downtown and around my neighborhood all the way to Roosevelt Park at 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock last night. So unless you're going to tell me it's too dangerous to walk within 2 blocks of Main Street downtown, I would really like to encourage us not to spend this money at this time. I think we have other ways to spend it.
I have a question for you, Bill. If we didn't do this parking lot, would there be any detrimental impact on businesses with employees parking? I mean, people are going to tend to want to park close by. Are they going to take up potential spots that basically shoppers could be using? Or, could we have some unintended consequences? I mean, I like walking. I really appreciate what Sarah's saying, and our Live Well Longmont program should encourage walking. And I know from our experience this summer at the Pump House Brewery that people complained when our parking lot was all tore up and our alley was torn up about how difficult it was to get there, but they still came, so people get used to walking. So, but what is your feeling on the parking situation around there if this wasn't done?
Mayor Coombs, if we do not have these parking spaces at the church, it's my impression that those employees that are displaced will be parking on the streets in the locations where we would like to have customers for the local businesses. I think also the staff that tends to park in the church parking lot, or the staff members that really have, I don't want to call them the lower on the totem pole, but they don't have as much standing, as much tenure, and you're going to displace them. So it's, in some effects, it's somewhat of a regressive move.
Okay. Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. Luckily, I was able to catch Dale earlier this afternoon because I had questions about this as well. The money is troublesome, but as Councilmember Levison brought up, there is a new parking lot that we have at basically 2nd and Main. Have we purchased any of those parking permits from potentially the DDA?
We have 16 parking permits from the DDA, from the LDDA. And
do we have any in that particular lot? Nick's coming up. Sorry, Bill. Sorry.
No, actually, we've been discussing that recently with Kimberly McKee, DDA, and the DDA has just discussed. We've started to talk to them about whether they would sell permits and they've discussed the possibility of selling permits in that lot, in the 200 block. And so with hopefully some of the desire of trying to make it an incentive for employee-type parking, which would probably be more productive in that lot than customer parking as much.
Okay. The 16 permits that we've purchased from the DDA, where are those permits located?
300 East Block, the one just to the south of the DFC.
What about 300 West?
My understanding from talking to Kimberly last week was on this issue was all of the parking, there are wait lists on all of the parking lots that they sell permits on at this time.
Interesting. Okay. Unlike Councilmember Levison, when I worked in the U.S. House, I was a low person on the totem pole, and my office was in the U.S. Capitol. I walked a mile, from I think it was parking lot F, outside in the weather. It was before I actually realized I could walk underground. Outside, uphill, to and fro for parking. If there's a way we can start understanding the assessment of parking needs for staff and try to find the best low-cost parking possible, this isn't it. Nothing in St. John's. They've been fortunate enough to give us 46 parking spaces. Unfortunately, that from what Dale talked to me earlier this afternoon, that price keeps going up, 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 up. So, 1 year, fine, but I wouldn't want to see this again in the next year. So,
Mayor, excuse me, Mayor Coombs, Mayor Pro Tem Santos, and that's the intent of this is to be a 1 year. We are holding. I did get the church to agree to hold the price to the 2012 rates, and with the reconfiguration of the 3 parking lots, 300, 400, 500 block. Also, I think that the transportation engineers and transportation planners will be looking into this. But the intent was to have a 1 year study on this, and this is my first involvement in this. So I'm hoping that it will be taken to heart, and we will study this and come up with some sort of conclusion.
Well, to put this thing in perspective, I remember when my daughter was going to law school in Las Vegas, I had to pay $650 for her to park in a parking garage at the law school. So $550 in just a parking lot seems like an awful lot of money to me. I mean, it seems like an awful lot of money.
Well, excuse me, Mayor. Mayor Coombs, one thing that I think this is based on is anything that the church does here, it's run through the Archdiocese of Denver. It's my impression that they're using Denver parking rates here in Longmont.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bit of a difference in the market.
Yeah, I think it's... Councilmember Levison.
So we're playing Denver parking rates for Longmont parking spaces. And also, I'm just calculating steps in my head. If someone who's a city employee at City Hall is going to park in the 400 or 500 block parking of the downtown lots, they could just as easily, for the same amount of steps, go up to the 500 block of Collier, and if you do it by the as the crow flies from a parking space in St. John's, it would be equivalent to half a block to park between 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue at Collier, or even in the 400 and 500 block of Emory Street. And part of the point here is we are maintaining parking spots on the street every single year. They're going unutilized. And, when you're living in, I understand that there's a perception that there's pushback from the neighborhoods, but frankly, every time there's a parade downtown, the expectation of the neighborhoods is not that no one's going to park in front of your house. I mean, that's something that we all live downtown, and we know when there's a high time for parades or shopping, or in the case of the pump house, people were almost parking in front of my house, and I live 2.5 blocks from the pump house. So it's not unheard of. And when you think about even parking in the furthest space in a Walmart, super Walmart parking lot and walking into the store, there's still less steps than from City Hall here to parking on a public street where we're maintaining a parking space 24/7, 365 days a year. And as far as the comment around the it's really the lower echelon of employees with the parking spot, then I suggest we look at more an egalitarian system where, except for the director, everybody who works in the two facilities downtown here puts their name into a hat, and we just draw out who gets a parking permit or a parking slot, and let's be more equal around it. If you really think it's going to be something for the lower end or the first line employees, then let's make it more fair that way too. And certainly there's lots of ways to skin this cat. Frankly, this has been a one-year lease every single year I've been on council, so I am not, 1 year too many for me. So I understand this, but I think that if we're not willing to say we'll take 46 spaces at $10,000 to the Archdiocese of Denver, or we say, thanks, we'll pass on it this year and we'll scramble to make sure that we accommodate people, then I'm not going to vote for $25,300.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately, Councilmember Levison, I've heard from many residents in the downtown area, and in fact, in the areas that you live, that they're upset with Comcast parking in the neighborhoods. They're upset with employees from the downtown merchants parking in their neighborhood. They're upset that city staff who don't have the parking permits are parking in front of their houses legally. You can park. That's a legal street. You can park anywhere you want. So I've heard from many people that they're upset, whether it's on the east side or the west side, in those residences that don't want employees to park, whether you work for the city, the merchants, Comcast, you name it. They don't want you parking there, which is unfortunate because it's, again, you can park anywhere you want. The other thing is that it is $25,300, and I also know of members of staff who every 2 hours do the shuffle, get in their car and shuffle around because they've parked in 2-hour parking or 3-hour parking, and now they have to do the little shuffle. They have to shuffle their car so they don't get ticketed. Yes, this has come to us every year. It's a 1-year lease. This is the last time I will vote for this, and I move Resolution 2012-101.
Second.
Councilor Finley, your second? Okay.
Oh, I had a comment, but.
Okay, go ahead.
Are there lots that the city owns now, for example, down by the service center, that have empty spaces that employees could drive to and then perhaps be shuttled up here?
There are some lots at some of the satellite facilities where there are some vacant spaces.
If there's one that has a lot of parking places, you might want to take a look at that for next year. Also, there are a lot of vacant parking lots, for example, down by the old Walmart, by the mall. I'm pretty sure they'd let you use 46 of those parking spaces and shuttle folks back up here for next to nothing. I don't know why, get a couple vans, shuttle some folks up, and it would be a lot cheaper than these spaces, and perhaps next year we should look at that.
Yeah. Could we consider that contacting the turkey plant owners and renting spots from them and see if they give us a better deal than $25,000? Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. How many parking spots are in that lot that we just bought?
It has been several months since I counted those, but I believe there's approximately 60 spots in that.
Since 44?
44, thank you, Brad.
So there's 44, and they have 46. First and Main isn't done yet. We can at least go a year without renting parking spaces, because if it's just as far from there, let's take $25,000, give it to the Firehouse Art Center, We can use it for the river corridor study. There's a lot of things we can do with 25 grand. And if we've got 44 parking spaces over there and we don't have the demand for parking quite yet, it's only a year. Let's save 25 grand.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. Where's the $25,000 coming from? Which
It's
fund?
a general fund expense in 2013.
Thank you.
Councilmember Levison.
Also note that there's free parking at the RTD bus station at right near the Roosevelt Park Apartments, the Memorial Building. And how many blocks is that? 5 blocks. And also, there's the parking at the senior center that is not full during the day, plus there's street parking there. I mean, I really think $25,300. I understand the mayor's point, but you know what? Would people that live downtown object when their friends come to park and you go down and have a beer? No. Or if people are coming to shop downtown and they decide they want to get a little exercise, I don't think, you know, the purpose that they're parking is necessarily the issue. And if, you know, staff want to pay the moving car game all day and waste their time, then that's fine. They'll probably walk just as many steps moving their car and burning the gas than to, you know, take a nice stroll up a neighborhood. And just think of the community policing aspect. Somebody's trying to break into a house, there's a city employee right there to observe it.
Okay, we've got a motion. It's been seconded. Shall we vote? It's a deadlock. It's 3-3, so it fails because Councilmember Samori is absent. So Councilmember Bagley, who's descended, Councilmember Levison descended, and Mayor Coombs descended. So it fails. Is there any way we could possibly go back and ask them to lower their price? Councilmember Santos.
Well, you know, if that's the case, then the council should look at giving up their spaces, their reserve spaces from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock on Tuesday nights, including the mayor.
I'd be fine with that. I can do that. At that time. I think it'd make more sense for us to give us our spaces during the day. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Mayor.
Councilmember Witt?
I think that really we personally are not going to feel this. We are not the ones who are going to be walking in the snow uphill to go to work 4 miles both ways. So I think that we need to have a plan in place before, but point well taken that this has been going on for a while, and perhaps we should have had a backup plan already. But to throw it into turmoil like this is not optimal, and it's not good government.
Councilmember Levison.
You know, because this was brought to us at the end of the year here, you know, we've asked staff to jump hoops before. They've done the oil and gas ordinance in double quick time. This is not rocket science, and frankly, this arrangement with parking has gone on so many years, and it's always been one more year, and frankly, I think we should really consider offering people the wellness point. People, you know, for the wellness program, they go and sign up for a race. Well, if we say park on the street, walk 4 blocks, get a wellness point for the year, there is a voluntary effort that somebody can do something good for themselves. And frankly, I see a lot of city employees walking the neighborhoods during lunch for exercise. So they're walking already. And I also think that we can be more equal, just throw everybody's name in the hat who wants to park in any of these, in the 2 underground portions or any of the other lots, and let's be more fair about it. And, frankly, it is considered a benefit, and I don't know if we're taxing people, for the free parking. I never got free parking, and, and I always worked in places you just walked.
Mayor Coombs?
Yes.
Can I clarify a
Sure.
couple things, Mayor Coombs, members of council? So with the parking that happens underneath the building, what does happen is that those managers and supervisors who are often back and forth to different meetings do qualify to be able to park underground. The rest of the spaces underground, along with the ones at St. John's, are put in exactly that kind of a raffle, and they're basically rotated around so that people have an opportunity to park underground, sometimes have to park at St. John's. So it is similar to what you're talking about, maybe not as many people in that raffle piece as you mentioned, but we can certainly take a look at that. The other thing is that it's not a dollar benefit, and so therefore it's not taxable under IRS code.
One of the things to clarify too is as we look at some of the DDA lots, obviously they charge us for those permits, and I guess based on this discussion, is council okay with us purchasing the permits from the DDA based on this discussion?
Yeah. And how much do we purchase those from DDA for?
The permits from the DDA are $240 per year.
Yeah.
But I believe there is a waiting list for those.
Oh, okay.
I think we would have to engage in discussions regarding the new parking lot that was just completed.
Okay.
That's the one we're going to have to, they don't have my understanding is they don't have a process yet, and that's what Nick has been engaging in that conversation on those permits.
I personally don't have a problem with giving up my mayor's parking spot if that's during the day. I mean, a lot of times I ride my bike anyway, or I can park across the street. All right, Councilmember Duggan?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I guess I just want to be clear on how to interpret my vote. It's not necessarily that I'm for wellness points, and it's not me telling the city staff to suck it and to walk uphill. I guess what I'm really saying is you just had a city council tell the archdiocese that they're charging too much for parking, and we're not going to pay that. Supply went up in Longmont by 44 parking spaces. Supply and demand curve has shifted a little bit. We ain't interested in $550 per parking space. So you've just gotten a little bit more leverage to go back and go, they're not going to pay it. Sorry, what do you want to do? Going rate, it sounds like it's $240, and they're more than double that. So I guess that's what I'm saying. I'd like you to hear you come back and go, yeah, they're a little bit more reasonable on their parking. It's $220 per parking space. So I would be more than willing to change my vote if they were more in line with reality on what they're charging for parking.
Understood.
Yeah, I agree totally with Councilmember Bagley's. Okay, let's move on. I guess that's the end. That's the last thing that we moved, wasn't it? All right, so we're to the next section. Final call, public invited, no general business. There is no general business, so it's final call, public invited to be heard. Is there anybody like to come and speak at final call, public invited to be heard? Please come down and state your name. I guess seeing no one, I'll close final call, public invited to be heard. So it's time for mayor and council comments. Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. As one of the four of us that went to the National League of Cities Conference Council of Cities, it was a very busy several days. There were some great workouts. Excuse me. It was a workout actually. That conference center was huge, which would be nice to have in Longmont. Anyway, there was some great breakouts. I was kind of disappointed in one of them that had to do with, as we talked about, the First and Main, transportation and placemaking. So it was a lot about placemaking, not a whole lot about transportation, which is, I plan to write that in my summary of back to NLC. Sandy, I have a question for you. when we met with the Boulder County Commissioners on September 11th. That's been 13 weeks, 3 months and 7 days. Have they responded to the urban renewal plan that we submitted to them for comment?
Mayor Pro Tem, no.
Have they responded to my request that they provide the city with a policy, the policy that the Boulder County Commissioners instituted the 99 years regarding the worthy cause tax funds?
Mayor Pro Tem, I called the county directly after our meeting, followed by 2 emails, and have not yet seen any information as requested.
Wow, that's very disappointing.
Would you like for me to call again?
I would like to move that we send a letter to the county staff and commissioners that as a part of our meeting that we had with them, that we requested this information. They were already, if I'm not mistaken, several days late on the urban renewal commenting period. And here we are trying to work within the urban renewal rules and state law by providing them with a breakdown of what might or might not be inflicted on the county. And also, we didn't hear from them. We still haven't heard from them 3 months and basically a week later. We also haven't heard on that again, my request, and no one objected, and Ben Perlman said he would actually get us that information. I'm shocked that as a representative of a city of the county of Boulder that we've asked for some material and some responses and still haven't received anything 3 months later. So I would move that we write a letter to the Boulder County Commissioners formally requesting the material that we asked for at that dinner with them on September 11th.
Second.
Okay. Got several people in the queue. Should we
vote on this first?
Shall we vote it for first?
I've got a comment on this issue.
Okay. Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I guess my question is, so what we're trying to determine from so they need to respond to us, correct, in order to say we want a certain cut of the TIF. Correct? That's what we're waiting for, right?
Mayor Coombs and Councilmember Bagley, there's no requirement for them to respond.
Correct. So,
right. But if they were interested in creating some sort of an IGA, then it would be appropriate for them to respond based on what the IGA they would be looking for. So many times in these urban renewal agreements, there will be some sort of an IGA. In fact, you will be seeing one with the school district coming up probably in January. But that was through conversations and a request from the school district. So
okay, so I while I appreciate your motion and your idea, I think we should just do it. In law, when you file a lawsuit and they miss their deadlines, and in this case, it's not just 1 day, 2 days, it's 3 months. I was there present when Mayor Pro Tem Santos quite vehemently and artistically and professionally said, we want your proposal. And they haven't gotten it to us. So how many times do we need to request it? So if they're not required to respond and they've missed their deadline and they have not responded to Mayor Pro Tem's requests, the council's requests, or the city staff's requests, I don't see any need to send a letter. Let's just go ahead and move forward. They did not request an IGA. They missed their deadline. They're not being responsive. Why do we need to go out of our way to give them money when they're not following proper procedure and we're begging them to respond? I think we should just do it. Is there any opposition to just doing it since they missed their deadline?
Let's let Brad weigh in on this.
Well, Mayor Coombs, members of council, Brad Power, Director of the Economic Development Department. I don't want to weigh in on the letter issue. I did just want to provide a very brief clarification of what the county was asked to respond to relative to the Twin Peaks Small Urban Renewal Area. We provided an impact report to them. So what we were expecting to get back from them was not a request for sharing of future tax increment revenue. We were expecting to get a report back from them concerning the potential impacts to county services from the dedication of the property tax segment of the incremental revenue. So we weren't asking for them or anticipating for them to come back to us with a proposal for a sharing agreement.
Okay, but based on them saying, hey, we're going to be impacted. We need to be, compensated for this impact. If there is no impact, there's no restitution, there's no monetary reduction. So that's what I'm saying. If they're not responding, I mean, I respect Boulder County, I respect the county commissioners, but they've missed their deadline. There's no, I mean, in law, if there's no restitution asked for, there's none given. So I don't think we should go out of our way to engage them when we've asked.
I think the inference you just made about the potential impacts is correct.
But I'd like to clarify too, they don't have to respond, but there is a time frame for them to respond. Okay.
Councilmember Santos?
I just remembered one of their staff saying we were going to respond.
Mayor Coombs, Mayor Pro Tem Santos, that's exactly what Michelle Krizak had said to me, was that they were planning to respond in the next few weeks. The other piece that's important to note is that, not only do they not need to respond, there's no requirement that they do respond. We tried to give them plenty of notice prior to the different public hearings around urban renewal. I will continue to do that, so that they understand where we are in the process.
Okay. Well, then I'll amend my motion and just ask for my request of getting where that policy for the 99 years on the worthy cause tax. Again, I'm appalled that as an elected official in a city, in the county, we've requested this information, whether it's the impact study response or my other request, that we haven't heard from in 3 months. So I would, if it's okay with the second, I'd like to remove, Councilmember Witt, if that's okay with the second, I'd like to remove that one piece, but just ask the piece regarding the 99. Because it's very unclear, especially to the Longmont Housing Authority, and I know that issue's dead because the Longmont Housing Authority basically said no to the money. It still needs to be very clear how that policy was determined by the Boulder County Commissioners.
Councilmember Samar?
Okay, well, moving on to happier notes.
Well, first, we've got to vote on this one.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a motion and a second, so let's vote on this first. Okay, that passes 7-0. Councilmember Samari.
Okay, now moving on to happier notes. We have a birthday among us, our own Ms. Katie Witt. I won't say when or how old, but soon and older. Well, hey, I may not be here on the 15th. So how about singing happy birthday to her?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Whitney. Happy birthday to you.
And many more.
Thank you, thank you. And it's a little bit early, but I hear there's Councilmember Samori's birthday in 2 months. No? Just joking. And he's going to be a lot older than I am, and he always will be. But I did just want to mention 2 things. Number one, I snuck it in, but congratulations to Silver Creek for winning the state championship at 3A football. Way to go, Falcon Nation. 2, it is the holiday parade this Saturday at 5? Is that correct? 5 o'clock. Be there, be square. It's one of the best parades in Longmont, and we have a lot to choose from. And it's one of the best because it's at night and there's lights. So be there. Thanks.
Councilmember Finley?
Oh, thank you, Mayor Coombs. One of the things that we need to do is congratulate Gabe Santos on his appointment to the board. I was going to do that. Oh, okay, never mind. I'll move on.
I'll do it too.
Okay, that'd be fine. Congratulations. Personally, just for me. Also, I wanted to mention the business of the week is El Taquito Mexican Place at 345 Main Street. Very good, very tasty. Very reasonable. I hear that we should all order the Marcello's chicken salad. Marcello's chicken salad. I plan to do that next opportunity I get. So, oh, okay. Well, apparently there's a whole bunch of things you should order, but definitely go to El Taquito.
Councilmember Levison.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Councilmember Finley alluded to this, but I'll be making the second announcement that Councilmember Santos has been elected to the Board of HELO, which stands for Hispanic Elected Local Officials, which is a constituency group of the National League of Cities. And I know several people, past and present, on the HELO board, and you are going to have fun with those people. I can guarantee it. They're nice people. Also, wanted to do a little bit of a report out on the meeting in Boston. We actually did use bus rapid transit to get from the airport, and I did. It was free, optimal thing, free, and it came right into a station. And you got off, and you just rolled your stuff right off and up the escalator and onto the street and a block and a half to your hotel. Very easy. I even took the transit system all the way out to visit my sister-in-law in Newton, in one of the villages of Newton, and it was not hard to do, and I did it as an experiment with a suitcase and my 2 carry-ons, and it can be done. And I wasn't even that sore the next day. So the other part of the meeting I found very interesting is there was some very good information, and they have not yet sent the PowerPoint presentations on the Fair Committee's presentations around the sequestering issue. There was something that was regarding public pension funds and getting IRS letters of ruling letters. And I noticed that we did actually get an IRS ruling letter from our pension, around our pension issue, and we should feel lucky that we did, because apparently they've decided to stop sending those ruling letters. So if we have any ruling letters we're waiting on, one of the resolutions and issues FAIR is working on is to ask the IRS to, get off their easy chairs and get working on some of these rulings, because you really do have to be straightforward with your employees around what their tax liability would be, and until you get that ruling from the IRS, you don't know at all, and people can't make a relevant choice for their pension plans. There was that, and then I attended a really interesting leadership training workshop on open data, and I'm looking forward to using some of the things I learned almost immediately. Let's see, interesting speakers, including Wes Moore, who's the author of a book called The Other Wes Moore, very inspirational story of a young guy who's now in his early 30s and turned his life around. And the book, The Other Wes Moore, was about a guy named Wes Moore who was involved in a bank robbery where they killed an off-duty police officer, and how their 2 lives were different. And real interesting story, and I hope to get a copy of that and give it to our youth center staff, because it's something that they would find interesting if they haven't already read it. Gosh, Brad Power, it was great to see you on that panel, and I wasn't able to stay for the whole presentation because I was double booked that hour. Last thing that I attended that was quite interesting was a presentation on techniques to increase financial stability for families at a low end of the economic spectrum in your city, and I'm going to bring some of those notes and presentations to staff, because I know we have a lot of payday lenders, and we've got a lot of check cashing places, and the estimate is some families can spend almost $1,000 a year in payday advances and check cashing fees from these places, and that's $1,000 they could be paying to their rent, to their city utilities, and they may not be accessing all the money they can through their their taxes and the earned income tax credit and other credits that they have due to them. And that's $1,000 also that doesn't go into our local economy. So I really think we maybe need to get a little bit more aggressive around making sure people have access to the tools that they can choose to get control of their own income. So I thought it was a great meeting, and it was nice to have a joint dinner on Wednesday evening with everybody.
Okay, I guess I'll weigh in here. First off, I'd like to apologize to the Realtors Association that I was supposed to come speak with on Thursday. I had it put on my calendar at the wrong time slot during the day, so I feel terrible about that and like to publicly apologize to them. On a happy note, I was invited to a Diwali extravaganza, which was put on by the Indian Association of the Rocky Mountains. It was held in the Longmont High School auditorium. It was really a great event on Sunday. Great food, great dancing, great singing. It was really a great cultural event, and they're planning on having that annually at our city. And I think that this is a community we could really reach out to as part of our culture. So I guess with that, City Manager, do you have any remarks?
Mayor, Council, we sent out the council calendar today, and we had an item on there that referred to an executive session related to Twin Peaks Mall redevelopment. Based on some of the pace of some of the discussions and meetings that we had last Thursday and today, and that we'll have the rest of the week, we're actually going to recommend to change that and have a public discussion on the mall in that issue, and so we will not need the executive session discussion, which allows us to shift the pre-session on the retreat planning back to 6 o'clock. So that was something that came up as a result of meetings Thursday and some meetings we had today, and we just felt like it would be best to have a public discussion on the mall project. So we'll be making that change to the agenda.
Thank you. City Attorney, any remarks?
Mayor and Council, just like to remind you that we're going to be adjourning into executive session at the conclusion of this meeting.
Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn into executive session? Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that we adjourn the regular session meeting and go into executive session.
All right, let's vote. Okay, passes 7-0. So we're now in executive session. Everybody out.